right. While people file into the room, Heather, I don't know if you remember, but the last time you were on here, I always like to ask some question that has nothing to do with the content of what you are about to talk about, but it's relevant to everyone, and that would be it is fall. I don't know if you're a football fan or not, but it is certainly the best time of year. What is the best thing about fall for you?
Well, I do have two little boys, so football is top of mind. We literally just got back from a Notre Dame football game in which we then drove to Cleveland to go see the 49ers play. So football is definitely a game changer in this house, but I live down by the Jersey Shore, and to me, there's nothing more fabulous than being at the beach in the fall months. I mean, the summer's spectacular, but there's something really outrageously beautiful about the Jersey Shore in the fall.
Yeah. And what's it there right now? What's your temperatures?
Low 60s, upper 50s, but I'm sure that's about to change pretty drastically very soon.
Right. Yep. Yep. It is New Jersey, right? So should the winter and the late fall should be getting here soon. So yeah, actually that's not much different than us, although I think this week it is edging up closer to 80 at night, I mean the afternoon, but last night it was low 40s. So
Whoa.
yeah, in Atlanta. So a little chilly. Snuggle down. So all right, well, let me get this thing kicked off. So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Elevate Your Firm, How to Gain Trusted Advisor Status. My name is Gary Dehart, and I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of today's webinar. Our speaker is Heather Sperduto. Heather is a frequent and sought-after national and industry speaker. She delivers unique insights on talent development, advisory services, and business optimization for small businesses and their accounting professionals. She was telling me prior to us going live, she's got another session that she's doing on Thursday out in Reno. It's going to take her like 4 days to get there and back, but just the joys of travel. But before I turn this over to Heather, I do need to cover some housekeeping items. And primarily being CPE. CPE is being offered for this session. Like all sessions, you have to be here for 50 minutes, 50 minutes. You must answer at least 3 of the polling questions. We actually have 4. The 4th one I need you to answer just it helps us a little bit. And it just asks, do you need to receive the CPE certificate? So if you need the CPE certificate, answer at least 3, but make sure one of those is that question about whether or not you need to receive the certificate so we don't process for everybody. The recording of the session will be posted to our YouTube channel after this. Probably takes us usually about 24, 36 hours to get that posted. I will also drop a link to our YouTube channel into the chat once Heather takes over. And we'll also drop a copy of the presentation into the chat once Heather takes over. And in the follow-up email, you will receive a link to take you to a box folder that has that presentation as well. So I think that covers it. Oh, no, one other thing. If you have any questions, we do ask you to put those into the Q&A panel and be specific in your question. Don't just say, Heather, what do you mean? Say, Heather, what did you mean when you said X? That way, if it's 10 minutes after you ask the question, then she'll know what you're talking about. That, I think, truly was the last thing I had to say. So, Heather, it is all yours. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be here in the background running the polls for you. Shout out if you need me for something else.
All right, here we go. Here we go. So, I like this time of year, not just because of the weather at the Jersey Shore, because now that extensions have kind of winded down, this represents for accounting professionals the ability to do that year-end planning. And as you all gear up for tax season, really think about what is top of mind for your clients and equally as important, your practice. So what are you doing to make some decisions to put yourself in a position to win going forward? So Gary mentioned that I'm over on the ADP team. I'm the vice president within our sales operations program running point on the design and execution of our accountant channel. And I am surrounded by amazing colleagues from our product team, our marketing team, our service organization. And together we try to figure out how we can help you more effectively work with the mutual clients that we share. And I will tell you, I spend a lot of time on the road. So I'm in and out of accounting firms on a regular basis. I'm venturing to Reno later this week. For the Accounting and Financial Women's Alliance program, they have their annual conference, and I'll be a speaker out there. So I tend to think that I have a pulse as to what is going on in your world, and it's my pleasure to share with you some insight for today's session. I do want to point out, though, the presentation is not considered legal advice, the final word on today's topic, nor a political opinion. So as always, before you take action on any of the information contained, you are welcome to review the material with your internal or external counsel. So a little friendly reminder there from ADP's legal team. If I could give you some perspective of the last several years, you all have earned that title of trusted advisor tenfold, and you have really led the way in terms of managing some of the compliance requirements that have come our way at a very rapid pace. And many of your clients have been extremely resilient and continue to flourish. And that's a big testament to what you all do on a regular basis. And I get it, staying up to date on some of the regulations, the compliance updates, it's hard and it can be overwhelming. But what I would love to do today is provide you with some of the actionable insights as you think about the technology that's in your practice, how it is that you could potentially partner with some other players, and then ultimately be able to execute as you jump in and advise your clients. Now, accountants have this very intimate relationship, especially with their small business clients. You have access to every single aspect of their business. And when you look at every line of the balance sheet, their assets, their liability, what their ultimate equity is, that visibility is in your world, and you guide them on the most important part of their businesses, whether it's their employees, their infrastructure, their inventory. You're in there consulting with them so that they can make decisions about where they're going to go next. And, I love the fact that every time I go to a wedding, it must be me, I must attract accountants, but I always happen to meet the accountant of the bride or the groom, soon to be a dual return there. But you guys are incredibly important to the clients that you work with. So in terms of our objectives of the conversation that we're going to have, I would welcome the opportunity to provide some recommendations in terms of streamlining your workload. And as you do that, how potentially you could actually expand and broaden the suite of services that you offer to your clients, so that you too, if you're there already, or if you're considering jumping into advisory services, how can you deliver high value advisory services, but do it in such a professional fashion that creates revenue at your firm on an ongoing basis? So with the objectives also come goals. And that's where, you kind of have the opportunity, especially these next several months, to self-reflect and say, hey, if there are some additional services that I would like to add, how do I do that in a unified way across the portfolio so that it seems simple, right? So that it seems simple. And then as the needs of my clients are evolving, you're going to have the same assurance that you're going to be able to offer them even a better service experience. So, that's on the client side, but on your side, it's okay, if I'm going to expand into different arenas, how do I do so that it's efficient in my operations, right? Because we don't necessarily want to add workload that kind of throws off kilter and balance of the services that you offer today. And when you do this and you do it right, in actuality, if you look at any survey that happens out there in the accounting profession, right now, when the question is asked, what is the biggest challenge? It's all about getting people. How do I get people? And when I get them, how do I keep them? And when you have this infrastructure where you have this tech stack lined up that's helping you with your workflow, the goal of that is to help you hold on to the talent that you have, because they are working in a really efficient fashion. And then I think a goal for all of us is the bottom line, right? Like if we're going to take on additional ancillary work that's going to fuel these advisory consultative type services, how do we make sure that it's done so that it's creating wealth and increasing profitability? So I want to gauge the audience, and Gary, this is where you're going to help me out with this first poll question, but just want to get a feel for those of you who are with us today. Are you currently providing client advisory services today? So yeah, I'm doing it regularly. No, I'm considering it, or you don't necessarily offer it at the moment. So let's kind of see where our attendees fall in the scheme of the pulse of today's world of work.
All right, we've got a pretty good participation, but let's go ahead and wrap this up in about 3 or 4 more seconds, and then I'll share those results with you. If you need CPE, go ahead and participate as well. All right, 3, 2, and 1.
Interesting. Okay. So we have a big chunk of people that, yeah, you're out there offering it today. And I like to see that number at 36%. That's actually higher than I've seen in some of the other webcasts that we've done. Equally as important, though, it's kind of cool. And I'm glad we have some folks here today that are considering offering in the future. And then hopefully we're going to sway some of the people who are at the moment are not. But our goal today is to bring you over to the other side so we can think about how we can do things just a little different. Okay, so for your consideration as we embark throughout this session, and I will tell you, this is my experience at ADP, working with a family of 60,000 other individuals, and I've been here since the day I graduated college for 2 decades. But as we approach what we do next from an innovation perspective, and as we broaden our suite of services, we have some options. And it's the way that I'm assuming you think about this as well. You know, if you're going to add some sort of service that requires technology, do you have the infrastructure to build it? Is it something that you buy? Is it available to buy in the market? Or do you have the opportunity to partner in relationships with potentially some best-in-class providers? So the reason, you know, Gary, you were instrumental with us as we were building out this white paper, but we have several partners that are part of our kind of ecosystem at ADP and our relationship as we go out there and approach the accountant community. And we were trying to get a handle on this synergy of how they complement each other. And over the summer, we had put together and authored this white paper about elevating your practice. So each of you have the ability to go out there and download the white paper and read through it, but it's really the foundation of today's program and session of taking a look at some of the unique opportunities that each of these players that are in our ecosystem bring to the table. And I was going to make it a little surprise effect, and I was going to unveil them one at a time, but I know sometimes people don't like surprises. So I figured I would give you the view of who is in our world at ADP that we consider partners when we work with the accountant community. And our thought is, you know, everybody really has the opportunity to benefit when accountants connect, you know, with the right players that can support you across the board. And some of them that regularly we work with or we recommend, we look at RightWorks in terms of standardizing systems and processing, the automation of bookkeeping, especially as we embrace how AI fits into our practices with, you know, robotics and just the overall world of technology. You have biz equity when you consider the opportunity to help your clients or even your firm for that matter with business valuation and succession planning. I don't think anyone would disagree that when you consider tax compliance, especially in the arena of sales tax, in my world, I think payroll's complicated, sales tax might have us beat. And then the other one that we'll bring into fruition here is the opportunity to do forecasting. So it's one thing to have that perspective to look back, but how is it that we help our clients look forward? And Giraffe is an exceptional organization that does just that with the tools that they bring to the table. So this is all about efficiency, right? And And if I approach some of these opportunities to advise my clients beyond traditional accountant, how do I do so but build standardized systems and processes? So how do I get my infrastructure in place, and where does automation and technology fit into the equation to help with that planning from a capacity perspective, right? So when I think about efficiency, that is an overall arching theme of what we would look to accomplish. And if you're not familiar, or some of you may be, Darren Root over at RightWorks, which you might have been familiar with RootWorks, so hot off the press, here's the new merger of the names in RightWorks. He is the chief strategist over there, and there is something amazing about the power of community and having a coach or a player on your side that could help you look at what are those recommendations that if I move into this cloud-based ecosystem, how do I serve my clients with such precision and speed? And I've spent a lot of time with Darren over the last several years. And first off, he has this very calming way about him, but that is the way that he approaches his recommendation when he works with his member firms over at RightWorks. And it's about providing that high valued, right? So not necessarily some of the services that are considered a commodity, but those high valued services that your clients work. And he's very good at sharing that you should be in a place in your firm where you are selecting and identify who you want your ideal client to be. And sometimes less is more. So it might not be necessarily the volume of the output of what gets done within your practice, but more so serving that client holistically. And does that enable you to maybe set yourself apart from what you've done traditionally with the chaos of a traditional tax season, but being able to better serve the client on a regular basis? While you're doing so, to analyzing the data that you have with the client, and then how that can identify and almost open up through those consultative conversations where you could go next to fuel that client's success. And, pricing is such a big conversation piece out there right now in the accounting profession, because traditionally accountants had billed, and some still do, with the concept of the billable hour. But the more and more that we work with firms across the country, and it's actually a question I like to ask when I'm meeting with firms, especially for the very first time, is to understand and gauge where firms are in their pricing model. And are they doing a value-based price model, a subscription price-based model, which oftentimes takes the pressure off some of the traditional services that would be offered like a la carte, but again, that more holistic experience for the end client. So at RightWorks, that building of standardized systems and technology, the tech is definitely 1,000% at the center. And that puts the firm on the path to make it happen. So if an analysis is done when a firm originally sits down and says, okay, step one is, let me figure out where my inefficiencies might be today. And then how do I establish those protocols and the procedures to put new technology in place? And most importantly, the training to make sure that the entire staff is on board, so that I can then go in and monitor and physically measure the results to ensure that the systems, the technology that I'm putting in place with my tech stack is yielding the incremental results for additional revenue and a better process or procedure at the firm. So that's a little bit about RightWorks. They have, well over 1,000 firms within the organization. And I'm always intrigued. I'll always say to Darren, I'm like, Darren, I was in this spot of the country. I randomly had lunch with a meeting with one of the firms that we work with. And in the course of conversation, unbeknownst to me, I find out that they're part of RightWorks. So I always say you must be doing something right, because I see a lot of like next gen firms and firms that are extremely eager to hit the better button on their practice, that are jumping into the environment of this community to figure out where they're going to take their practice next. So it was a little bit about RightWorks and the concept of, as Darren would say, creating the modern firm. So I want to shift over now and talk a little bit about capacity and automation. And, you know, the tasks of bookkeeping, it's the core, right? Oftentimes it's the core of accounting to make sure we have the books straight so that we can then fuel how we jump into the additional accounting work. But the utilizing of that automation with the technology to empower the team. And BotKeeper, hopefully this is not new to everybody that's with us today, that automation of bookkeeping with human-assisted AI. And just recently, I had the pleasure of being up in Boston at BotKeeper's event that was called Unchained AI. It was like a logo that was all over the environment at the conference. I sat at a panel that was moderated by Deb Deffer, who works with the Woodard Group and previously with BDO. And she's the master of technology and the workflow, and how it is that even though you may have different systems that serve their purpose, you have that seamless interface where you can take the data and flow into the next system. And BotKeeper seems to be the core here with that bookkeeping automation. So you have the technology built directly into the operating system that offers the firm the comprehensive solution. So all the buzzwords out there is compiled here in BotKeeper. So if you look at machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, this is what is out there in the industry where everybody's looking to get to. Not only that though, but you have this expertise of that human aspect of support. So whether you're augmenting that manual time-consuming tasks, you're able to create that lightning fast, hyper-efficient way to do bookkeeping. So Deneen over there, she's their VP of Growth and Strategic Relationships, and she is incredibly passionate. As she says, the firms that are automating the bookkeeping, they now have time to speak to their clients about the data. So instead of gathering all the data, they're advising the clients instead of drowning to get the work done. You know, and I always say, like, the data's out there, but the accounting professional is the one that helps their clients make sense of it and digest it. And if there's a way to take away some of those mundane tasks and get the data in your hands faster so that you can do what you do best, to me, I think that's mission accomplished. So that brings us to the second polling question, which is all around technology. And we're looking to find out for, you know, if you're either offering or you're planning to, where does technology fit into the equation? So are you utilizing it to offer those advisory services? So yes, no, I use some technology, or I'm not currently offering client advisory services. What do you think, Gary? Where are you going to bet your money?
Well, I see the results while they're going in there, so it would be unfair for me to bet at this stage.
All right.
Where are you going to bet? I mean, I can see the results. So, what do you think?
I think it's going to be. I think based on the first answer, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be. I use some technology. That's where I would say.
We shall see. In about 5 more seconds, and we'll close this up. So if you need CPE, please do participate. We'll get this wrapped up, and I will share the results right now.
All right, so there we go. 29% use some. 18% seem to be all over it. We got a group that's not just there, and then we have the group that's not offering it, but we are going to sway them soon after. Okay, so now Now we talked about bookkeeping, like there's a little bit of a community. You can always have some support in your infrastructure. We looked at bookkeeping. Now let's go upstream a little bit to some of those higher valued services, such as the business forecasting. What could we do in the arena of tax compliance? And ultimately, how do our clients have a handle on what their business is worth with valuation? So Giraffe, and this one was the hardest for me as we were looking at some of the partnerships that we were forming out there in the market. This was the one for me, honestly, that took me the longest time to get my arms around. But then once I did, it was like this aha moment of this makes all the sense in the world. And it might be what feels like a little bit of a heavier lift in the initial phases. But once a firm gets rocking and rolling with the ability on the FP&A side to have that hindsight, not just on the past, but what is going on real time in the present, in the world of your client, but then having the foresight to be able to guide them as to what comes next. And that expanding through forecasting, budgeting, the reporting, and the planning, this is what clients are craving, right? And I think modern day, we live in a world where you expect the unexpected, right? That's just where we are. And especially after the last several years, having that handle on making decisions, but backed by the data, gives us a sense of a little bit of comfort, I would say. And the Giraffe team is awesome. You can see some of their players there. I run into them periodically across the country. Yes, giraffes are like their thing, so I always know where to find them. But think about this in terms of like actual real-time insights and the ability to swiftly improve decision-making concepts, because you can look at that allocation of resources and figure out where they need to be, like from a time frame where we could make some shifts for that business, and then ultimately bolster the performance when you're able to identify those trends and opportunities. So Dawn Brolin, designated motivator, as you could find her out there in the market, she's the CEO of Powerful Accounting. And she definitely has made her mark by taking the accounting profession by storm. And she moved into the world of Giraffe. And what she indicates is she was able to make that shift to those higher end services, but it transformed her firm. And the reason she was seeing that increase in revenue and margins, and now she's able to help her clients understand the big picture and really guide them to make sound decisions to be able to reach their financial goals. So I'm hoping that that like piques your interest a little bit as you think about that business and forecasting side. So there's a couple more here that we're going to go through. And the next one has to do with sales tax and regulations. And when you look at the magnitude that is entailed in navigating what we could consider this confusing labyrinth, the tax rate, the rules, and the regulations. When I was on that panel up at BotKeeper and the company Avalara was there with us, the woman was actually sitting next to me. And when we really peeled back and looked at the numbers, over 12,000 state and local jurisdictions play in this arena. And now, as businesses enter new markets or they add additional sales channels, whether it's employees, products, services, this is now where that activation happens and the obligation to register and file in those proper locations. So with Avalara, when you look at sales, hold on, I lost you guys there for a second. Hold on. Coming back. You can see my screen, right, Gary?
Yes.
God, I thought I lost everybody. That would have stunk.
Oh, gotcha.
So sales tax, risk, use tax, the filing of the returns to make sure that they're done in a timely fashion, making sure exemption certifications are up to date and accessible, and then registering in those locations. So here you have Sona. She is the head of the Global Accountant Partnership over at Alera. And what she stresses is when you think about that cloud-based technology, whether it's the calculations, the reporting, the prep, the remittance, as well as the exemptions, which we had indicate, this allows the accountant, and I love that she uses the word wrangle the tax complexity with the simple referral over to the tax experts. So they're helping you enhance that status as the trusted advisor because you're able to take such an overwhelming scenario for your clients as it pertains to sales tax and maybe alleviate that with the work that you could do through the automation and using that tax compliance alongside Avalara. So that's a little bit on the Avalara side. So this brings us to our next partner, which to me, I don't want to say I have favorites. By no means do I want to have favorites, but I will say I am incredibly intrigued when you consider business owners today. 75% of the world's 200 small business owners don't know what their true value is. I don't know if you guys find that surprising. That actually came from IBIS World that does industry intelligence reporting on a regular basis. And then the other one, the startling statistics that I find even more eye-opening, 78% of business owners, they're planning to fund their retirement with the sale of their business, but yet don't necessarily have a handle as to what that business is worth. So business valuation, especially if I would say when we looked at what had occurred during the pandemic, we had businesses that closed their doors, right? They closed their doors. They needed to kind of get their bearings. They were in a situation where they couldn't necessarily operate. You had businesses that were potentially partially open, or you had businesses that actually thrived because they had something that the market, they shifted, they adapted, they pivoted, and they were open the entire time. But during that period, it was a self-reflection for so many businesses, especially as they went out there to secure funding and loans, to be able to have a handle on what that looked like, the business worth overall, but more importantly, how payroll fit in, their employees, their earnings. It was overwhelming. And Biz Equity has been a player that has really shined. And Patrick Strausberg, who is out in the Michigan area, you know, if you talk to Patrick about Biz Equity, he will tell you, and he and I have spent a fair number of having a cocktail on the road once in a while, and he will say, man, Biz Equity made me look like a hero to my clients because I could go in and I could ask them just a few questions about their current state and plan for the future. And then jumping into Biz Equity, he was able to position himself as that strategic advisor. So Biz Equity has this patented tool. They calculate the business valuation, but the interesting thing is it's not like a one and done. So they provide ongoing instrumental value beyond just that one hit. So they're able to go in and assess the overall business health and the growth trajectory. So it also creates opportunity besides just the business valuation to then go in and look at where you could potentially advise in the arena of retirement or succession planning. So Biz Equity is one that's, I think, pretty brilliant. And I have another really nice endorsement from Marie, CPA advisor of the Profit Lab. She's down in the Florida market. She's someone who really reinvented herself. And in 2020, go figure, what a time to go in and launch a new practice. She knew that like traditional accounting was not where she wanted to be in that market in Florida. And in 2021, she was converting her experience primarily as an auditor and a controller to more of the CFO type advisory services. And she found the missing link, which was valuation. So she had heard about Biz Equity she realized the potential to empower her entire business model. And then this software became really pivotal as she was able to finalize and register that methodology to complete the advisory package that she was going to offer. And, you know, Marie, she's actually been really helpful because she's done some training and education for us, trying to look a little bit differently about that business valuation market. And she'll reference that the tool is dynamic and it's able to assist clients who are looking to seek a new business and then complement the service to augment her existing offer. So very often, you know, originally, when you think about business valuation, traditionally that model was held in if they were, you know, a business was going to sell, or if there was some sort of like, let's say, divorce or separation that was happening, whether on the personal side or the professional side, oftentimes that's when evaluation would come into play. But I think now we could probably all agree that having this type of intel within your business is pretty impressive to be able to have a handle and know that so you can figure out where you go next. So that's a little bit about the biz equity side. And I want to just bring back the partners again for a second, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a scope of how they all kind of flow into the realm. You know, you have Avalara that we talked about solving some things on the sales and tax side issue to help you build out your practice and portfolio in that arena. Biz equity, understanding the true worth of what a business might have by leveraging some of the performance indicators. BotKeeper with the machine learning, combining those highly skilled accountants and the bookkeeping, ultimately to be able to improve efficiency, save time, grow revenue. We have the Giraffe model on FP&A with that, you know, forward looking with the business owner to be able to give some projections and make decisions on those financial strategies. And then overarching with RightWorks with that comprehensive environment of that peer community and really figuring out how you can ensure that you become a modern firm. So this is our third poll question, Gary. Let's bring this up. Best option that's going to describe you, and you have 3 of them. Are we getting you excited? So are we getting you excited to think about things that you could go out there, explore, and learn? Are you today offering multiple, or is it something from a different perspective? Let's see where we go. How's it looking, Gary?
Looking pretty good. We'll keep it open for just a few more seconds, and then we will share the results. And again, if you need the CPE, make sure you participate. Close it out in 2 and 1. Here we go.
All right, we got some excitement. Mission accomplished. We're earning our keep, Gary. Earning our keep. Okay, so this is the part of our conversation today where I also want to pull in the technology on the ADP side, which, by the way, complimentary. So I just want to make sure I set the record straight. 81,000 accountants have registered for a pretty cool approach as you think about streamlining the payroll and technology. And in this concept of unified solution, one login, seamless integration, all your clients under one roof, how is it that when you think about the client's payroll and HR, you can integrate with your current tech stack, improve the reporting and the visibility, increase efficiency and revenue, which is a theme that I've been trying to carry through without, but ultimately deepen the advisory aspect with your client relationships and security at the forefront. So what I thought I would do in this last piece here is walk you through like real world application in today's world of work with Accountant Connect, because you know, the understanding is out there that over the course of, here we are almost, you know, at the end of the year, you still have a couple of months to be able to advise clients as they close out the year, but then also guide them into that tax planning for your busiest time of year. And even though I mentioned 81,000 accountants registered for the experience, they've gone in and generated, you all have generated 14 million reports to get access to the client's intel on the payroll, the reports, and the trends. I want to give you things that you might not have been aware of, some of which were literally just released this morning, that I guarantee you could package up as part of your advisory services, and you'll be pretty impressed about how you could have a very productive conversation. So just to level set for a second, when you come into Accountant Connect, right, and you're in the experience, the most important thing that you could do is make sure you have that secure access and invite the client into the dashboard. When you do that, you can select who they are, let us know the product line, but do you just want reports? Do you want the ability from a tech stack perspective to interface with the general ledger? And then for whatever reason, if you want to jump in and run the payroll on their behalf, if they need your support, let us know and we'll create that level of authorization. But for today's kind of advisory flair, I want to point out to everyone that there's actually a tab of advisory opportunities. And what we're trying to do with the help of ADP's advisory board, some of which were members that I shared earlier throughout with their examples of how they're using some of the other partners. This is all about taking the data and make it meaningful and making it actionable. So what we share with you is the portfolio of what the client is utilizing today. But then we take it a step further and we say, okay, if you have a client that, for example, just hired 3 people, or let's say that there were 2 people that were terminated, that's pretty significant intel for you to be able to have to go into a conversation and maybe coach them, for example, to make sure that they have compensation in line. So if they're hiring people and we also serve up in the event that maybe they're not in the geographic area, they could be in a different state, considering remote work seems to still be a pretty viable option out there to get talented people. So you could jump into this data cloud experience where we have access to 30 million different records. So I could say, okay, my client is a restaurant. They're in New Jersey. They seem to continuously lose the cook. Let me go in, look at New Jersey, look at Monmouth County, for example, and let me get the benchmarking and the intel that shows me some of those medians as to what that pay looks like. So we have firms that real time will bring this up in a conversation with their client to run through some scenarios to make sure that their pay is on point. Now, if you shift gears over a second, you also have the conversation around benefits. So why does someone come into an organization? On the flip side, why do they leave? One of the most critical factors these days is especially around benefits. So you can go into industry insights, same sort of concept. When you think about all of the data that we have, we will pull up by industry, by position for you, what compensation and bonus look like within specific job types. So if I am a construction company, or if you have a client that is a construction company, let's say today they're not offering benefits and we're seeing that they're losing people on a regular basis. I can look at the data and I can see the demographics of the breakdown, male versus female. Are they single? Do they have a spouse? Do they have a family? So that are indicators of what type of benefits I might need to offer within the full scale of my employee base. So the nice thing is, like, I'll talk with firms and they'll say, hey, Hev, not only do I pull it up, like I'll go into the specific industry of the client that I'm going to meet with, and I will give them the output and make it part of my reporting so that we could go in and look at some of the strategies pertaining to like companies so that they could see real-time benchmarks in their industry. So again, I go into advisory services, you have compensation benchmarking, the next tab over will take you into the industry insight. Now, how about this one? This is kind of like the last part of the equation here when we look at advisory opportunities. We also serve up what is happening in their world. So we're closely taking the data for the clients that we share from a compliance perspective so that you can then make recommendations to hopefully help them reduce any risk or exposure they may have on the compliance side. So an example might be this school, right? this school has 20 people, they're in New York and New Jersey. If you're keeping up with what's going on in the world of retirement, New York now has some mandates pertaining to retirement in New York. So now we can see, hey, they're not necessarily using retirement on the ADP side, nor do they have a retirement deduction. So what do you want to do, right? Like, do you want to have us talk to them? Do you want to talk to them? Do you want to share information? So if you were to say share, you could pull up from a library of topics, something like the Eye on Washington that provides the guidelines of the new state mandate in New York, and then say, hey, this is happening. You have this employee, they're in New York. We need to figure out the best way to put some sort of retirement plan in place. And it runs the gamut. It could be workers' comp. It could be tax credits. So that might be an area where you could look at, kind of small on the bottom of the screen, but you have this innovation company. They're in the software industry. Here's what their payroll has looked like at 1.489 million. They might qualify for R&D. So, hey, this information, it's in there. Sometimes I feel like they're hidden gems, but you can then like say, okay, so I found out this information pertaining with my client. They're not saving for retirement. They have employees in New York. I can then say, all right, well, let me make it real. Like, let me try to make it as user-friendly in this advisory conversation to show them. So I can scroll down to the calculator functionality, and I could pull up, as an example, the Secure 2.0 tax calculator. So you can show them how offering a 401k plan could be more affordable than they ever would have considered. So you would plug and play with them some of these questions that give them a scenario-based that would then calculate the potential of what that savings could look like, and ultimately how you could paint the picture of saving for retirement. All right. So that would be an example. I see it all the time. I'll be across from a firm and I'll be like, did you realize that was in there? And everybody's like, do I pay for that? And I'm like, no, it's part of Accountant Connect today. And people are usually inspired and pleasantly, delighted, I would say, as they look at some of the intel that's out there in Accountant Connect. So that leads me to like the final couple updates here as we start to wrap this up. This time of year, ADP complimentary shares the CCH Master Tax Guide. So starting on Friday, if you work with a dedicated associate or if you happen to be an Accountant Connect, we actually solidify orders so we know if anybody wants the physical guide, where it is that we're going to distribute them across the country. This year's guide, believe it or not, actually equates to over $10,000 in value. And it's our way of giving back to people that actively work with ADP today. But we house the CCH Tax Resource Center within Accountant Connect. So I do want to give you a heads up that as of this morning, we're not waiting until 2024. We actually activated the latest feature, which is the CCH Answer Connect. So we've taken the initiative to upgrade the resource section with this new CCH Answer Connect. So it's like a slick new adaptable way for you to be able to go in there and facilitate your research. So people always say accountants are so smart. I go, listen, accountants are brilliant. And I spend the majority of my day with accountants. I think you all know where to get the answers and you do so flawlessly. So I'm hoping that you incorporate this new tool into your everyday regimen as you're out there doing research or helping your clients get answers to things that are happening as the world of compliance continues to change. So that went live. If you're using Accountant Connect, slide over, check out the CCH tab because it happened this morning. And if you're not using the experience, very simply go into adp.com/Accountant Connect and you can register. So you'll be able to grab all that year-end reporting. W-2 season will be here before we know it. We want to make sure that you have the data and that you have it so that you can then fuel those conversations with your clients. So at this point, this is the last question. Just curious here if you're interested in learning about some of the tools that we discussed today. So Gary, you can pull that one up.
I actually don't have that question.
Oh, you don't? You have the one about CPE, correct? So let me go forward.
Right.
You pull up what you have.
All right, we'll pull that. I can see if I can go in the back end here and add that
No,
question.
don't even worry about it. You're good, Gary.
Yeah, I
We just
thought
need
we
to
had
know if you
information.
need CPE to qualify for today, and if so, we'll make sure that we do that fulfillment. So let us know. And as we close out today's presentation, I just want to make sure you know where to go if you need us. And if it was anything that we covered today, you guys can find me on LinkedIn. Normally I put my cell phone number up there, but if you grab me on LinkedIn, I'll be able to respond accordingly. But any of the experts that we have on site, most of you work with a dedicated sales associate today that periodically visits your firm. If you don't know who they are, you can find them in Accountant Connect. When you click on that phone icon, you'll see we have 3 levels of support. The dedicated sales associate, we also have our accountant help desk, which are best in class and amazing individuals. You can call them at any point in time, but to me, I think the most innovative way to be able to grab us is service requests. So when you click on that little ticket there, you can share with us in a secure fashion what it is that you're looking to accomplish. If you have any documentation you need to send our way, you can do so in a secure fashion. And then the best part is you can monitor the progress of what we've done to address whatever scenario that you brought to our attention. So Gary, we are at the 50-minute mark to qualify for CPE credits. Hopefully we were able to provide some perspective as you think about advisory services, some of the recommendations who we have vetted out as best-in-class partners, and then a little bit on the ADP side, if you're using our award-winning Accountant Connect, how you can hopefully maximize the experience to consult and really look like that hero to your clients, which is our goal as we build out that program.
Okay, and do you want me to post that poll? I was able to add it. Want me to do that?
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully everyone's going to say, yes,
Right.
that would be fantastic. But if you need any follow-up on my side, you just let me know, and then feel free to download that white paper as well. I think if I'm not mistaken, we're going to send it as follow-up.
That sounds great. All right. Well, Heather, thank you so much. That is, every time I see the Accountant Connect, it seems like there's more information in it and more value to it. And I'm always blown away by how much is there. It's amazing, really. And what do you have to do? Do you have to have one client? Is that it?
You can sign in without the connection to any clients. I mean, ideally, it's built with a foundation of connecting to the clients.
Yep.
But if you just want to use some of the tools and resources, you're welcome to go in and register for the experience. But the majority of firms go in and actively connect the clients that we share.
Gotcha. All right. Well, great. Well, enjoy your trip out to Reno.
Here we go. Good stuff.
All right. Well, enjoy that. Have a great rest of the fall. Are you going to Vegas for Connect?
Some of my colleagues will be out there in Vegas at that time. If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm going to be on an ADP trip to Puerto Rico. So we're dividing and conquering as we navigate all of these different great conferences and experiences that are happening across the country.
Sounds great. Well, enjoy your trips, and I'm sure we will see you very soon.
All right. Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.